And joining me now is aviation attorney and former Navy pilot Dan Rose. Dan, I want to thank you for your service. We're going to lean on your expertise here because you served in the Navy as a carrier-based attack pilot. Based on what we know so far, what Gio just laid out here, what could have led to this deadly collision?
Good to be with you, Morgan. Very, very sad for this tragedy. I think we're going to find out, hopefully in more detail when the black box is recovered, that there's a chain of events here that happened. One is, obviously we're working at night, makes things very challenging. Two, we have a routing of helicopters going right underneath an approach to a runway, which is with very limited separation, which is very dangerous. Three, we're going to have, I think, the pilots in the military helicopter, the Blackhawk, mistaking the traffic that they thought they had in sight and they were supposed to follow, and we're probably looking at a different aircraft. And we're going to also see that the air traffic controller was apparently, under non-normal circumstances, probably understaffed in the tower, was working very hard to manage all the traffic, and got behind and realized there was a problem developing after he had told the Blackhawk to follow the CRJ, and the flight paths continued to converge. At that point, the thing that should have been done was to make sure that the Blackhawk veered to a direction away from the CRJ, direct the aircraft further away, rather than rely on the fact that he hoped that the Blackhawk pilots had the correct aircraft in sight.
Well, Dan, I want to lean into that aspect a little bit more because realistically, how much time does a helicopter have to change course here? I mean, how could the chopper maybe not have seen the regional jet in front of it? I mean, there's so many different factors here, but it seems like it happened so fast in a split second. Was there even time to negotiate a change of course?
Yeah, there was. I mean, helicopters are obviously very maneuverable. I mean, they can literally stop on a dime if need be, and can maneuver and pivot. But, this wasn't, sure, it seemed like the split second in the last portion of the flight. But remember, this was a chain of events and an accident developing over, probably minutes, including initially misidentifying the traffic that they were supposed to follow. So it started back at that point. Again, at night, it's challenging. You really have to pick out lights of an aircraft. You don't, a lot of these videos, I know people look at them and say, wow, how could you miss that? It's so obvious, but it's a very different perspective in the plane when you're trying to pick out lights, when there are other aircraft with lights on in the area. There was another aircraft going into runway 1 that very likely could have been misidentified as a traffic they were supposed to follow. There are lights all along the river. The river is dark. It is very potentially a confusing sight picture for the pilots. And that's the reason the route specifies below 200 feet, which it seems they weren't. I guess we'll find that out for sure with the black box as well. But even at 200 feet, to have a helicopter go underneath a landing aircraft at that runway, you have to expect that if everything is just perfect, you have maybe 200 feet of clearance between the aircraft and the helicopter. And that's just unacceptable that you cannot do that, because being off by 100 feet either way is not unusual at all. Here it was tragic, but it's not unusual.
Absolutely tragic, and a lot of questions here. Dan Rose, we thank you for lending your expertise and, of course, speaking with us today.